Everyone. Do you know what today is? It's Friday and it's 12 p.m., which means it's the Friday 15, but it is the week before Host Week starts. We are getting so excited here at HAR. I hope you have registered already. There are over 2,000 registrants already. So if you haven't already, go to hostagencyreviews.com/hostweek, all one word, and get registered. It's free and it's fun. And we've got a lot of surprises in store for you. Today on the Friday 15, I have on a co-host today, Christine Hardenberger with Modern Travel Professionals. Hello, Christine.
Hey, Steph. Hey, everybody.
And Christine is also doing some stuff. She's involved with Host Week. So for those of you, she's number one, she's doing a host interview, and that is Monday, I think, isn't it, Christine?
Monday, yeah.
Yep. Monday at 2:30. And then she has an edu spot. So she'll be doing an educational session on Wednesday, the 31st, around 3 p.m. Central Time on Reels Blueprints. So tune in for those. We will put the link in to register for Host Week so you can get all that information. All right, Christine, we've got some good questions today. Okay, first question. This comes from, and this is cute because normally people just sign like anonymous or don't put their name, but this person put new agent, and it made me feel like it made me feel like I was Dear Abby or something, where they're like confused partner or like frustrated sister-in-law.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So thank you, new agent. I'm feeling really awesome right now. So they ask, I'm a newish agent under 3 years of experience, and I've been entertaining the idea of venturing out on my own. I'm currently with a host agency. I'm curious about some suppliers, specifically Disney and Universal's criteria for quote unquote accepting a new agency. I don't want to leave my host agency if I won't be accepted to sell Disney and Universal, as these are the two I primarily sell. How do I start the process to apply? I can't seem to find any contact information for applying to sell these suppliers. So, Christine, I know you've signed up since you're an agency before. Can you tell a little bit about the process?
Yes. So I actually had to look this one up because it's been a little while. It's generally a pretty easy process once you have your CLIA or IATA. And I've never heard of them not accepting somebody unless there was something, because they do ask background questions, like if you've ever been convicted of embezzlement, that sort of thing. So I've never heard of anybody being rejected unless something like that came up. So I did do some searching because it's been quite a while since I signed up. With Disney, it's a little tough to find. The best way that I found to come up with it is to search on Google Disney commission eligibility. And the first thing that pops up is the application. It was the only way I could find it. It's super hard. So to Google Disney commission eligibility.
Okay.
That was the easiest way to come up with that one.
Abby's going to be in the comments, Abby from Harris. And Abby, if you can Google that and then put that in the comments for people, that'd be fantastic.
That would be awesome. Yeah, because I could find the link, but I had no way to share it here. And then for Universal, it's actually in VAX. So if you go into VAX and go to the suppliers and then go to Universal, there is a little tab that says register to sell. And that's where you can sign up a new agency. So again, I've never heard of them not accepting anybody. The one thing that this agent, well, there's two things that when I read this question, I thought of that the agent is going to want to consider. First, with under 3 years experience, that might be a little tough to go out on your own. There's a lot more to it than just booking the trips like you're doing now. So I would really do a ton of research into how you have to structure your agency, the systems you're going to need to put in place, and everything that you may not have thought of. It's a lot more work than just signing up. Second thing I would also recommend is check your commission structure, because the thing is, when you go out on your own, they're not going to count your sales from your host agency. So you're going to drop back to the minimum commission for both Disney and Universal. And depending on what you're making now with your host, that could be a significant pay cut, 4 or 5% or even more.
The other thing too is I'm not sure, but if your agency you're with is earmarked, that's something to consider as well, because if you leave and you go to non-earmarked, you do lose quite a bit quite a few perks and different things that come with that.
That's
And
an excellent point. And
yeah,
they've made it harder to become earmarked. You have to achieve much higher levels of production than you used to have to. So it can take a lot of years to build up to that now.
I'm gonna put in links too for the Disney Travel Advisors portal and then the Universal's website portal, because I think they have a direct registration link in there. But the one thing I will say for advisors that are listening in, if you are with a host agency, never sign on directly for a supplier unless your host tells you you need to sign on directly or they give you that link. And the reason behind that is if you're signing on and say it's a more obscure supplier that your host agency hasn't signed on for, then all that information is going to be coming to you. And that's not what should be happening. The agency on record needs to have the contact information of the host agency. And so always check in with your host agency before you sign on directly with something, if you found the link by yourself. And then the last thing I'll say for this advisor, it sounds like they're a new advisor and they're really focused on Disney and Universal. So this isn't as big of a deal. But if you do go off on your own, one of the nice things besides the relationships and sales that your host agency will have in place with the suppliers is they sign up for all of them, which can be a very tedious task. They receive all of the information and sort it out and send it out to the advisors. They receive the commissions checks, they cash them, and send them out to you, and everything's automated on that end. So when Christine's talking about all the extra work that a host agency does on the back end, those are just some of the things to be aware of.
Yeah, it's a lot more than people think there. There's a lot more to do, not only to set it up, but just day to day, like Steph
Hmm.
pointed out.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's not for everybody, and I've seen a lot of new agents jump to wanting to be on their own and then not make it just because of the overwhelm.
Yeah, and I'm going to put a link in to our travel agency accreditation option. So the other thing to know, new advisor, is that you need to have some, in order to be accepted, you need to have some sort of accreditation number. So with your host agency, whatever the ARC or CLIA or IATA number that they're using, you'll need to get your own. And this article will walk you through the different accreditation options, the costs of them, what you need to do. And that's something for you to take a look at too. All
Awesome. Yeah.
right.
Point.
Next question comes in from Anonymous. I'm thinking of switching agencies. How does that process work? What should I be asking the new host? Great question.
That's
What
a
do
really
you what do you suggest?
So there's a few things, and I did make some notes. So if I look down, it's because I made some notes. First and foremost, I always tell people to, take their time choosing a new host agency. I always suggest you make a list of the things that are important to you in a host. It's a lot like choosing a college. Some people want a really big college that's really hands off, and they are just kind of looking for that framework that we were talking about, and they want to be left alone. And other people want a smaller, more intimate feel with a lot of personal attention. So first, think about those things. But I
Hmm.
came up with 4 questions, or 5 questions, that I think I don't get asked a lot, and I usually tell people who are interviewing with me because I think they're things they need to know. And the most important one, it's amazing, is when and how does the new agency pay commissions? Sadly, we see a lot of people who don't get paid in a timely fashion, and it's not actually listed in their contracts. So when do they pay them, and how do they pay them? And that also includes, when do they pay out cruise commissions? Do they pay them out when they get them, or do they pay them out after travel?
Hmm.
The
And for those
second
that are
one,
new, sorry, Christine, just
yeah,
really
go
quick.
ahead.
For those that are new with cruises, it's a little different because they
Right.
often pay after final payment instead of after travel, which is the norm in the rest of the industry.
Right. And some agencies hang on to that money until after your clients travel, and some agencies, like, I pay out when I get it.
Hmm.
So that's an important thing to know, because if you do a lot of cruise business, that can really affect your paychecks, and when you get them.
Hmm.
The second question I had, and this is another one they don't think to ask, is does the agency hold the sellers of travel licenses in the 7 states that require them? I think it's 6 now, but that's a really big one, especially for Florida and California. If you are, for instance, a Disney agency. Again, I'm a little unnerved sometimes, but the number of people that don't carry it, and they really need to, because you can get in trouble selling travel in those states if they don't have those seller of travel licenses.
Mm-hmm.
Then the third one and the fourth one are kind of connected, but I want to know, I always ask, who will I go to if I have questions? What is my ongoing support going to look like? Am I talking to the agency owner? Is there a dedicated person? Will I have a mentor? Do I have to just go to a website? Do I have to go to a Facebook group? What kind of ongoing support will I have, and who will be the person answering my questions? Because that goes back to what I was saying earlier. Some people just want to go to a website and look it up. Some people really prefer having a person to talk to. So you need to know what that's going to look like after you join their agency.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing I had was to ask how many, if and how many in-person agency events do they plan? And this could be anything from an in-person agency meeting, agency sponsored fam trips, but are there going to be opportunities for you not only to go on fam trips, but also to bond with the other people in your agency? Because I think those relationships can be huge for not only information, but also, just to have somebody to help cover if you're sick or on vacation. Like, forming in-person relationships with the other agents really, to my mind, shows that a real cohesive agency. So I always ask that as well.
Mm-hmm. I think the relationships with the other advisors is key, not just for the learning that can take place, but because working from home and working by yourself, which most people are doing when they start off, it can be very isolating, and like mentally, people don't prepare for that. And it's nice to be able to, even if you just sit on a Zoom and work with someone for 3 hours twice a week, there's just something really nice about being able to interact. I know for me, when I started off, at first, it took me a couple months, but then I started realizing, like, oh gosh, I don't really talk to anybody. And I was working a lot on getting this site. I'm like, I haven't really left my house that often. Like, I think I need to socialize. So that's another plus on it. And
Yeah.
a few resources for you on this. So I'm going to share my screen really quick. So on our site, we've got some great resources for you. This article is going to be the most helpful. Switching host agencies, 5 things to consider. So we talked with some advisors that had switch host agencies, gave their feelings. We talked to attorneys on it. But this is going to be a wealth of information for you, because number one, you need to know not only what you're looking for in your new host agency, but you're also going to want to take a peek at what your contract with your old host agency says. Because for you to be able to move, you need to be able to understand, all right, are the clients mine? They should be yours. But a lot of people don't read the contracts very closely before they sign on. And then they may realize as they're going, oh, like they won't give me my client list. Or if you tell your host agency ahead of time, beware of what could happen. So a lot of people end up just paying 2 fees between the host agencies until all their commissions are cleared. But if for some reason you tell your host agency you're leaving, there have been stories, advisors have told me, where then they got locked out of their accounts and they weren't able to service their clients. They didn't get their client lists out of the CRMs. So if you are going to tell your host agency that you're leaving, make sure you've gathered all the information, that you've downloaded the information that you might need to access if for whatever reason you get locked out of your account. But lots of great information in this switching host agency articles. I would recommend it to everybody. We'll put the link in the comments. Another one I want to share is our article on travel advisor contracts, things to look for. So when you're going to your new agency, you will want to take a look at, we spoke with different attorneys about this within the travel industry, but things like, how is the commission structure paid? Make sure that is clearly labeled. All of this stuff should be clearly labeled in your contract. It shouldn't be ambiguous. How much you're going to get paid, what you need to do to terminate it. when you're going to get paid and how often. That should all be in here. And if there's any sales quotas, any minimums that you need to work on, this SOT, the seller of travel compliance, that was something that Christine mentioned earlier. And we will link to our article on seller of travel registration if people aren't familiar with it. It's a little bit too much to go over today. And then the other thing, I won't show these, but I'm going to list 2 other resources we have that'll be helpful for you, Anonymous. One is a list of travel advisor attorneys, people that specialize in the travel industry. And it's handy to have them take a look at a contract if there's anything you feel uncomfortable with, or if you have questions about your contract with your current host agency and leaving. And then the other thing I want to put in is the article on tips to finding the best host agency for you. Within there, there's an Excel sheet that has a bunch of questions to ask, things that can help you differentiate between the host agencies. Because I think the most important thing when you're moving host agencies is to know what you want, what your pain points are, and how that agency can fix it. And the Excel sheet helps you kind of walk along that path without you having to think too terribly much about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. That is okay. We've got another question. We've got a lot of anonymous people today. So this is anonymous again. My best friend and I are wanting to look about becoming travel agents together as a side job. We both work full-time day jobs. Do you know if any agencies cater to joint ventures? She has traveled much more than me and knows a lot about Carnival and Princess cruises. Although cruising is what we would like to focus on, we would love to learn more about what we need to do to get started. So, Christine, maybe you can walk us through kind of the process when an advisor comes on with you, like how they get started, what they need to have ready when they come to your agency, and what they can do after when they sign on.
So when they need to have it ready, I'm not sure what you mean by it, when they come to
Like having the name for their agency, or if they need to have like an FEIN number before they come in, like the federal employer
Gotcha.
identification number.
So with our agency, obviously everybody comes on as ICs. They do work under our name, kind of like a real estate agency, for insurance purposes. So when they come to us, they should have a business bank account set up. They should talk to their accountant about whether or not they need to set up an LLC or an S Corp, depending on their financial status. And then if they're going to partner with somebody, they should have a contract with that person to make sure that you are exactly on the same page about how work is going to be split up, how clients are going to be assigned, should the partnership ever break up, how money is going to be split. Partnerships can be a little touchy in any industry, not just the travel industry. So before I take on people who are partners, I really encourage that, because your agency, your host agency, is not going to get into the middle of it.
Yeah.
If you guys start arguing about, I did 80% of the work, but she's getting half the pay, like that's not,
That's a huge issue. Yep.
Exactly. And for a partnership, I would definitely be setting up some sort of LLC or corporation, depending on what your attorney and the accountant think. Because again, your agency is going to write one check. They're not going to send 50% to Susie and 50% to Jane. They're going to send one check. So that's something to think about. But generally, when they get to the agency, they should really just have their financials in order, set up their business account, set up their business if they need it. And that is something your attorney list. I love the attorney list on host agency reviews, and I use it. They should talk to one, and they should talk to an accountant to make sure they have that set up properly from the beginning.
Yeah.
After they get to the agency, they should expect to be put through a training program. I know we put them through a training program that takes about 6 weeks before they get started, so that they have the foundation not only in the logistics of booking with whatever agency you're with, so you know how to use their systems, you know how to enter your bookings correctly in whatever system they use, but then also a solid background in sales and marketing, especially since this person sounds like they're looking to get into the travel agent business from square one. She asked if there were any agencies that cater to joint ventures. I don't know of any that specifically do. Most agencies will accept partners. But again, they are going to have to function as one entity as far as the agency is concerned, in terms of sending leads, if leads are a thing that they do, in terms of sending checks, that sort of, or commissions, not necessarily checks, but all of that is going to go to whatever partnership is set up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's, the partnership thing can be touchy for them, not so much for the agency.
Yeah, I think the big picture to take away from this is not to go into a partnership lightly. There have been many friendships, relationships ruined by people that went into business together. And that if you are going into business together, we had a Friday 15 a few, I'll see if I can find it, but we had one probably a month or so ago that asked a similar question, and it was with Katie from Turn, and she was talking about how her and her two co-owners went into business together, but before they went into it, they made sure they did personality tests to make sure that they were compatible. They understood what people's strengths were and what people's weaknesses were, how to communicate with that particular person the most effective way. And there was just a lot of thought that goes into it, because I've talked to many people that when they go into a partnership, you think everyone's going to do 50-50, or everybody has the same work ethic because you've been friends for such a long time. But that's not the truth. So kind of laying out what the expectations are, what people's jobs are going to be, what happens if things go south, and always use a travel attorney to draft up those contracts, because you want to make sure that you're asking all the right questions and laying it out, and they will know what to do. So we'll link to the attorney list again. One other thing to consider, if you're going with a friend, and maybe you're like, okay, I think I'm more serious about them than they are, but they would like to join me on our list. So you could bring them on as a sub-advisor, like so an independent contractor underneath you. That way you would own 100% of the company and kind of be in control of things. And then your IC underneath you, you could, you work out whatever your commission split is or however you want it to be. But on the host agency list on the site, in the more filters, if you click the allows sub agent box, it will show you all the host agencies that are set up to handle kind of that sub-advisor relationship. So that's something to think about too as another option. And then in terms of setting things up, I would recommend, getting things set up, the financial situation, et cetera. If you haven't run across our 7-day setup, we have our Light, which is our free course, and then the Accelerator course, which is the paid course. But I would recommend this. It walks you through day by day everything you need to get the agency set up. It doesn't focus on the sales and the marketing in like the day-to-day once your agency is actually set up, but it gets you to the point where you have an idea, you want to start an agency, to actually all the business things you need to do and consider to get it set up, helps you get them set up, helps you choose if you need to do a host agency or go on your own for accreditation, and then how to choose that host agency. And that's kind of what these are meant to do, to help you bridge that gap that's kind of difficult for people to do. So hopefully that helps you out. We'll link to those courses in the comments. And we are running out of time today. So Christine, it was wonderful having you on. We know you're going to be on Host Week next week, but I'm going to link to your profile on Host Agency Reviews for people who are interested. But if anyone wants to reach out to you, is there a good way for them to reach out?
Absolutely. So, because we are always looking for great agents, so they can reach out to me on my email, which is Christine@moderntravelpros.com. And maybe they could stick that in the chat there. Also, you can always call or text me at 804-833-8050. And I'm also always happy to answer questions. I actually do have an Instagram just for travel agent tips. That's called Tips for TAs, @Tips4TAs. So that's a good place to find out more information too.
Cool. Thanks. We'll definitely link to those in the resources. And for those that tune in and looking for who's up ahead on our schedule for the Friday 15, first of all, if you have questions, we'd love to hear from you. Hostagencyreviews.com/Friday15 to submit them. And coming up next week is host week, and we will be doing our Friday 15 there. We have one of our listeners, Nadine Smith from Nova Travel Solutions, is going to be my co-host. And then the week following that, February 9th, we'll have Melissa Foz with At Home at Atlas Travel. And then following that, we'll have April Swales, which is a familiar face. She's co-hosted before with Uniglobe Travel Center on February 16th. So last call, sign up for host week. We will be going live starting Monday at, let's see, it starts at 12 p.m. Central Time, technically, but 11 o'clock Central Time, we have Fora is hosting a coffee spot where you can join them. And the first 75 attendees get a free $7 gift card for their coffee for that morning. So make sure to join us, sign up. You can get all the details by going to hostagencyreviews.com/host week. And that is it for us on the Friday 15. Thank you so much for joining us, Christine. And thank you everyone for joining us. We'll